Life Force Movement. I am Tay Finley, and we have Dr. Gabriel Hernandez L. I'm excited to bring to you guys some new information for some, old information for others, but this is part of the Life Force Movement. As I said in the initial episode, is that we will approach all things wellness. Everything that we promote is not the only thing, but the things that we profess to be extremely beneficial for ourselves and for the clients in which we help. So excited to we're going to talk about acupressure for health, the 12 points of homeostasis. I started, and I have not published it yet, but I did start a series of the 5 element theory in Chinese medicine. We will get back to that once I finish editing it, and then we're going to do part 2 of some of the episodes that I've already done, and I'll publish those and get with Dr. Gabe, and we'll release those. But I think this is a good foundation for some of the fundamental principles in which when I started taking classes with Holistic University, some of the things that I learned initially, and it's kind of the foundation of how we treat or look at clients and how we educate them on the best avenue for them to go about their optimum wellness journey. So hopefully you guys enjoy the information. Please leave comments, questions and comments in the comment section, and we'll rock and roll from there. Dr. Gabe, I'll let you take over.
Indeed. Peace. What we're just going to touch on today is a little bit of acupressure, and we're going to learn 12 of the 36 homeostasis points. Homeostasis simply means balance. So it's bringing the body or a particular system within the body into balance. And so these 12 points are easy to find, easy to manipulate. And so these are, you hear that terminology these days, biohacking. So this is biohacking 101 right here. So these are you go ahead.
Yeah, one of my talking with my son and another very intelligent young man when he came, you and I were talking about marketing and things like that. And he, some of the homework he gave me was to look at X, or formerly Twitter, look at, just type in biohacking in Reddit, right? Because that is a very popular topic, and everyone is putting in, whether it's opinionated or science-based data, into what they think and some of the things they deal with. And so, that is the hot word right now.
Yeah. So this is, before it became a buzzword, this is the foundation of biohacking. You can look at it like your body has a little over 720 buttons. We call them acupuncture or acupressure points. However, we can also look at them like buttons. So we can reprogram various systems in the body by pressing these buttons in a certain way, with a certain amount of pressure, or at a certain angle, or with a certain rotation. And we'll talk about all of those different ways to manipulate the points as we go through. And Brother Shante, if you have any questions, if you can kind of help me facilitate as a, like give me questions that may help those who may be watching, so that, maybe I can break something down if I.
Yeah, I think when people, I could tell you this, even when I'm explaining, because I had someone ask me, why do you like traditional Chinese medicine or that theory or methodology more? And it says, not that I like it more. To me, it's easier for people to understand, right? Because it's a domino effect, right? The points, the pressure, certain things are what makes it delayed, what makes it immediate response. So why does it take? And I think some of the things you may touch on now is, why does it take? Some people go to acupuncture and get immediate benefits. Some people it takes a while. So depending on what that is. So even with I remember I had a client and it was kidney issues. So I was actually doing with the non-invasive, infrared, but I was starting at the kidney meridian between the ball of her foot and the heel of her foot and going up the side of her legs. And I was doing that, and she said over a period of time, it took about 3 or 4 sessions, her lower back wasn't hurting anymore. So I think people understanding how does it work is really beneficial, because I explain it my way.
Yeah.
But I think just the basic science of 1 + 1 = 2, then 2 + 3 = 5, and what have you. So
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And we're actually going to be dealing with one of those points that you just mentioned here today, because it is one of the homeostasis points. And I think you made another good point, is that you don't have to use needles. You can be non-invasive. That's what this is about, acupressure. So you can press, you can use lasers, you can use infrared, crystals, moxibustion, and other tools. So I'm going to move right forward. Okay, so what is acupressure? Acupressure is often called acupuncture without needles. Instead of needles, acupressure involves the application of manual pressure, usually with the fingertips, to specific points on the body. According to the principles of traditional Chinese medicine, invisible pathways of energy called meridians flow within the body. At least 14 meridians are thought to connect our organs with other parts of the body. Acupuncture and acupressure points lie along those meridians. If the flow of energy, also called qi or ki, is blocked at any point on a meridian, it's thought to cause various symptoms and health conditions anywhere along the meridian. That's why a practitioner may apply pressure to an acupressure point on the foot to relieve a headache, as you just mentioned, on the feet for the back, right? One thing you said too, I just kind of wanted to reference when you were talking about like understanding traditional Chinese medicine. I also think when you line up the different types of traditional medicine, specifically, like if you were to line up TCM and Ayurveda, right? Although, and they are related, first off, but TCM having those main 5 elements to deal with, and then Ayurveda kind of breaks it, those same 5, it kind of breaks it up into
in the
3.
dosha,
Yeah, and it's kind of like combinations of the different elements. So to me, I think it's much more difficult for people to really understand the Ayurveda. It does not, although it's, once you understand it, it's pretty clear, but I think it's, in Chinese medicine, it's been broken down to the most common denominator. So that
right.
a little easier to explain, and it doesn't get convoluted and mixed in with the other energies. And so that
Yeah,
you,
because in Ayurveda, it's like certain things are running simultaneously with each other, and we're in parallel, and it could become confusing. Well, am I fire water? Am I this? Am I hot dry? And so I think that's what gets kind of confusing. I remember when you had me doing the dosha and learning it. It's not that it was difficult, but you had to really understand everything is in parallel and be able to differentiate, right, where you may need to give attention to.
that's right.
Where in TCM, the way that I understand it is that one thing is codependent on another, and if your wood element is off, then it could impact your earth down the line,
Yep.
right?
Or your
So
fire.
that's or fire, right? So
Yep.
it's the cycle is fire, earth, metal, water, wood. That's the cycle.
So that's the creation cycle. So then
Right.
there's 2 other cycles. There's a destruction cycle. So the destruction cycle is basically telling what you just said. So like your fire, if your fire is out of balance, it can start eating your wood. So it'll start going in reverse instead of in a creation cycle. For instance, how so like wood would create fire, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But in reverse, it's destructive. So now your organs are almost fighting each other. It,
Yeah.
it's it's really interesting once you start dealing with clients and you see how things actually work. If those kidneys are low, or if the stomach energy is low, the kidneys will start to eat from the stomach. It'll start borrowing energy. Yeah, and it's
When
wild.
you first did my TCM, it's what 2014, I think, everything was good, but my water was out of balance. Now, if you want to, for those who are listening, if you want to say, okay, if you just know astrology, Western astrology, right? I'm a fire sign,
Mhm.
right? So what my personality traits of being a quote unquote Aries and stuff like that, right? Very quick witted, this. A lot of Aries tend to have a quick temper because we're fire, right?
Mhm.
But my ascendant sign is Virgo, it's earth. So when you look at why I struggle sometimes with digestive issues
Yeah.
or the kidney or the liver, it's not that I eat bad or anything like that. There's an inner conflict within me, right? So if emotionally, if I'm stressed, if I see if I'm working too much, if I'm not getting adequate rest, it directly impacts my liver and kidneys. But that's me,
Yeah.
right?
I
But you
mean,
have
it's not just you. I mean, as many people as do not believe that astrology is an actual science, when you take some of these basic concepts within astrology and you cross-reference it with various traditional medical philosophies and sciences, they line up correctly. Me being
100%.
yeah, me being Pisces, it's the feet. I'm ruled by the feet. That's the part
Right.
of my body. That's where I
I'm
have
ruled by the head.
yeah, like it's so interesting. And when I do my TCM or my five elements, it always comes up, you know.
Right,
And not necessarily just my feet, but the feet represent water. I'm a water sign. Again, the kidneys show up. You've been
right.
dealing with five elements. So, there's so many different correlations, the color, the smell, the
Mhm.
season, the growth cycle, etc. So there's a
You
lot.
do you know, I don't want to get off topic. Do you know what your ascendant sign is? Because you're a water sign and the thing and even in,
Oh,
as
yeah.
we become
I'm fire.
business fire, right? So that's why we
Leo.
actually get along. And your brother,
Yeah, I'm
so
Leo.
for the audience, your brother has the same birthday I do, April the 7th, and you
Yes,
have the same birthday as my sister,
that's right.
February 26th. We didn't
Correct.
know that until I think a year or so later. We was like, hey, my birthday's coming. I'm like, when's your birthday? But what I
Uh,
wanted to say is, so certain things have to flow a certain way with you. With me, it's I structure everything. And and I think we do a really good job when we work with each other where intuitively you may see things.
mhm.
Hey, Shantae, let's try this way. Because some things just come to you where I'm very in the head, right? I'm very like, hey, let's put this down, let's put this down, let's put this down, and I'm ready to go, right?
Yep.
But that's once you understand that, you begin to understand how that correlates to your health, right? I need to sit down, and what I'm really teaching myself is, yeah, I have my qigong that you taught me. I have my affirmations, but I require actually more rest time
Mm.
with me going because I can go. So I burn out as fire. I burn out very easily, but I never thought about that because I just thought that I just have a hyper personality and I just have abundance of energy. I
Yep.
do, but I die out really quickly as well too. And
Yeah.
if I'm around the wrong type of people, because I am fire, people can take from your fire. If they're not fueling it, people can put it out.
Yeah.
So
Like you're really going into some deeper concepts within the philosophy of traditional Chinese medicine, because now you're getting into the cauldron and you're dealing with so in the Dantian, which is the center of the body, uh,
mhm.
and the cauldron sits there. So you can imagine like one of those pots that the witches would have in the cartoons, and they stir
Yeah,
it up.
yeah, yeah.
So you have this
It-
golden cauldron there, and if it's not properly filled with chi, that's what the qigong does. So when you're doing your microcosmic orbit, every time the chi comes down the front of the body, you're collecting it in the cauldron. And
right,
so by doing the breathing, you're cooking the pot. So you're cooking that chi and you're distilling that energy and creating a finer substance. This is like the alchemy within this type of practice. So,
right.
mhm.
And so for people who don't know what Datien, that is right in your above your pelvic,
So
between your pelvic and your navel, right?
we call it Ren 6. Ren 6. And as far as an acupuncture point, Ren
Hmm.
6. It's the Ren meridian, which is on the front of the body.
Hmm.
That's the governing vessel of the body. It's also called governing vessel or Du in Chinese. And the point is number 6. It's actually your second chakra. And,
Yes,
and in that second chakra,
sacral. It will be your sacral chakra.
exactly. And that is the actual center point of your body. So that's where your center of gravity actually uh, sits.
Hmm.
So that's good to know if you're in martial arts or if you play sports or something. You kind of
Yes,
know that,
yes,
that you know
yes,
how you're moving
yes.
around people and so forth.
I've heard this, right? And you and I talk about when we were young, and I think you play football, but you always could jump. And a lot of people think, oh, jumping is in your calf muscles. Oh, studies come out, it's in your quad. But I've listened to kinesiologists and different sportsmen, like it's actually in your core,
Mhm.
right? It's in the center, right? So lower back pain, what's the first thing your chiropractor will tell you to do is they don't just give you stretches, they give you core exercises as well to
Yeah.
stabilize your lower back. So, that's probably a whole nother show, but yeah,
Yeah.
go in.
No, that's right. All right. So I'm gonna go to the next slide. So
Go ahead and
use.
I'll be back in 2 minutes. Go
Okay,
ahead.
no worries.
Go ahead, go
No
ahead.
worries. All right. So uses of acupressure. Most people try acupressure for the first time to manage symptoms of a condition such as cancer-related fatigue and other forms of fatigue, insomnia, headache, menstrual cramps, motion sickness, muscle tension and pain, nausea and vomiting after surgery or chemotherapy, nausea and vomiting during pregnancy or morning sickness, and stress management. Although we could have listed 100 more items here. That's kind of like a clean sweep. It does cover a lot of different things, and you can use acupressure or acupuncture for many different things. Some of the benefits include, in a 2017 study published in the Clinical Journey of Sports Medicine, for instance, researchers examined the effects of 3 minutes of acupressure, 3 minutes of sham acupressure, or no acupressure in athletes who had sustained a sports injury on the same day. The study concluded that acupressure was effective in reducing pain intensity compared to sham acupressure or no acupressure. There was no change in anxiety. Acupressure may help ease nausea and vomiting in those with chemotherapy, induced nausea and vomiting, according to a report published in California, a cancer journal for clinicians. Researchers analyzed the results of 3 previously published trials and found that acupressure using finger pressure or an acupressure wristband decreased nausea, vomiting, and retching. In a report published in the Cochrane Database of Systematic Reviews, scientists analyzed 22 previously published trials on acupuncture and acupressure for the induction of labor and found no clear benefit in reducing cesarean section rates. So that's just a level balanced, just breakdown of some of the benefits. But this is from just a clinical study standpoint. So of course there are many more benefits, but these are studies that you can pull up yourself and get more information.
Absolutely.
All right. So the first point that I wanted to touch on is lung one. So lung one is this is a major homeostasis point. So basically, all of your uh, homeostasis points on the abdomen are called alarm points. Also, the ones that are located on your back are also called alarm points. And they call them alarm points because if you add a little pressure, it's like sounding an alarm. That person should make a nice little yelp, you know. So acupressure points aren't necessarily comfortable when you apply uh, decent pressure to it. Sometimes it can hurt. It can be a little because most of, not even most, all of the acupuncture points are placed where they're placed on the body are in the middle all the time in the middle of a ganglion or a gathering of nerve endings. So you do have to be careful. So if you do get acupuncture, right, be careful if the acupuncturist is a medical doctor because they think they're doing nervous system puncture. They think they're
Gotcha.
actually puncturing the nerves in the nervous system in those points. But you have to actually learn the science of how to find that actual area and know how to slide the needle in without hitting the nerves. That's what makes acupuncture hurt if they hit the nerve. So the whole
Okay.
point is to miss the nerve and hit the point. But that's it's kind of advanced. It takes a long time to get the sensitivity in the fingers to be able to feel it. And here in Atlanta, those who know, there's several medical doctors who do acupuncture here, and they're
Hmm.
known for hurting people. But they're the only acupuncturists that are like people are like, I will not go back to them. And a lot of people have been turned off completely from acupuncture because of those types of doctors, because they don't have the training. They don't have the experience or the training.
So, do you think, based on your experience, that if a person's a medical doctor, and disclaimer is not saying that we are against medical doctors, because I think all forms of medicine, if it can help someone, it has its place, right?
Mhm.
But if they do not go through, I guess, the TCM way, right? At
So
least understanding fundamentally what it is, that it hinders them for grasping how they are supposed to do it.
what it is the training is different for medical doctors. So
Right.
they don't make them go through everything. They make them do like 100 hours of classes that they can do in less than a week. It's typically like a extended weekend program,
Yeah.
and in like 4 or 5 days, and they're certified and licensed and ready to go. Um, yeah, and they do that because they assume that those 8 years of school will give them enough information, to fill in the gaps.
Right.
But it doesn't because they're two completely different sciences that you're dealing with. You're not even it's not even in the same book. It's not the same. It's just not the same. So you cannot take one and just do it like this. You literally have to bring it like this. Like you have to know both so that you have the understanding of both. You can't just say, okay, well, I know this. Let me take a little bit of this and now I can do that. And that's it's really a political move, but it is what it is for now.
Yeah. You brought up something, because I remember when you had me get the that 400 or 500 page Chinese medicine acupuncture,
Cam,
the Bible of Chinese medicine, right?
yeah, Cam.
And I started reading it from front to back. You're like, no, 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 no. Then you gave me different sections to read at a time. But yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's a lifelong journey, right? I told someone, um, they were asking me again, going back to why am I so for Chinese medicine, and how do people know this stuff works? And how I said, well, think about it. If you go back five, and correct me my dates, go back 5,000 years when you had um, the Yellow Emperor, right? And then you had these sages basically sitting in nature, right? And they would sit hours and days at a time observing what was happening,
Hmm.
right? So you got, people have to understand that there was no Netflix and chill, there was no sports, there was anything. So you had people documenting,
Yeah, you had. I
what
mean, they were
happened when
doing,
they
no, you're right.
brother,
They were doing decades of meditation at a time
decades of meditation. Yeah.
and
So
observation.
um and observing certain things with the body and how the body responded to this, how to respond. So this information was accumulated over a period of times, understanding there's some herbs work and maybe some people passed away. I don't know that, but I can imagine the trial and error, and it's being documented. That's why a lot of these sacred documents are held in such high regard, is because that's where the information lies. Just like in ancient Kemet, the Ibris papyrus, right? That information is held there because it was observation and trials and done over a long period of time to say, hey, this is what works. Now, of course, we have technology and things like that to accelerate it or modify it or modernize it, but that's how the information. That's why we know that these things work, because it wasn't just something done in a 5-year span. The
Hmm.
stuff was done over hundreds and hundreds of years and kept sacred.
That's right. And just speaking to that, and then I'll go into this, is that like when you look at, for example, the Egyptian um, astrology, which we call Western astrology today.
The Dendera, yeah,
I mean, that took tens of thousands of years of observation to even create, to be able to
yeah,
have this system. You,
yeah. And for ladies, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, the women created the zodiac, right?
well, I can't even say we don't have a record for that. But however, if I think you're referencing Zodiacus, I believe. So Zodiacus is dealing with the zodiac, and it is a female energy, a female figure known as Zodiacus, dealing with the zodiac. So from that
Well,
perspective, I do understand it from that perspective, but I
well,
just, mhm,
the way that I understood it,
mhm,
and this is a program for children as well. But the way that I understood it, they understood their female cycle in the 28 days, and when
okay,
the men would go out and hunt and when they can come back and copulate. And so they started to create that because they knew when they wanted to get it in and when the men. So
no, that's an
it,
excellent point. I wasn't thinking about that, but excellent point. Yes,
yeah,
I
yeah.
would have to
So
say,
they began to chart,
yeah,
right?
makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if you start getting into the history of mathematics, that's how the number seven came about. Because as they started to chart the cyclical, the quarter of that seven is a straight line in this, and that's how the number. Come on now, talk to me.
All right, all right, make it
give
happen.
my give my Conway talk to
Uh,
him.
that's right. That's right.
Hey, we go in on life force movement, but yeah, that we'll save that. That's, what, man, and maybe we just I think that's a great thing to investigate, right? Because in different books I've seen it, but the historical validation of that. So I'm
Mhm.
just sharing what I've heard and what I've seen. But I don't know, like you said, the record of that. But just understanding in ancient civilizations when men, if they were hunter and gatherers, and how women would kind of chart everything and the
Mhm.
harvest and all that. So it
Makes
was
makes
based
perfect
around them.
makes
Yeah,
perfect sense. I mean, when it comes to harvesting and planting, I always go to my wife. So
indeed.
is today a harvest day? 'Cause she'll go check and make sure. But anyway, so all right. So Long One, the Chinese name is Zong Fu. So
Hmm.
for the general person who's watching this, you don't necessarily need to know Zong Fu. If you want to learn acupuncture one day, Zong Fu is something you're gonna want to learn. The location. Now, this requires that you may do a little bit of anatomy study, anatomy and physiology, but it's on the upper lateral chest, right? One chun, a chun is a Chinese inch. Okay, it's the distance from this knuckle to this knuckle. Okay, and it's pretty much universal from human being to human being, regardless of how tall, big you are. I mean, unless you're 8 feet tall, then it's going to change. But for the most part, the average human's uh, tune measurement is going to be the same, especially
Hmm.
if you're dealing, if there is a major size difference, you can use the measurement from that person's body. That person's body's individual tune measurement will always match up with the measurements that we talk about with anatomy in Chinese medicine. So one tune below lung two. So if lung one is here,
Hmm.
lung two is here. So
Okay.
you can see in the diagram, lung one is a little bit lower. So okay, you can see it here. And if
Yeah.
you were to touch that point, it should be a little tender. See if you can touch that
Hmm.
on yourself.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right,
I got it right here.
all right, a little bit tender. And then if you slide up just a little bit, like 2 inches, then you'll be in
Woo.
lung. Okay, that
Right.
should also be a little bit tender. Uh,
Right.
all right, so that's how you find that. It's in the first intercostal space, which means like that first rib space, 6 chun or 6 inches from the midline or the middle of the chest. Okay, and that's how you can find that. So that means you can find it two ways. You can find it from over here, meaning the upper lateral chest, 1 chun below lung two, or you can go 6 chun from the midline, okay, of the chest.
Hmm.
So you can use either measurement to kind of find that. The classification is front mu. That mu means alarm point of the lung meridian. The crossing point of the lung and spleen meridian, which means that the spleen meridian crosses this point in the lung. So this, when you have a cross section of meridians, it often means that you can treat both organs. So let's say both the lung and the spleen need some treatment. You can oftentimes, if that particular spleen point that lines up with that lung point is congruent to what you need done, then you can actually knock, as they say, knock out two birds with one stone. Indications for this point, which means what type of um, symptoms is that individual having. So this is good for cough. This is good for asthma, wheezing. We just dealt with that whole uh, pandemic. This was a major point for that. Chest
Right.
pain, mainly for excess conditions. Shoulder and back pain. Abdominal distension. Okay. Functions: disperse heat from the chest and stops cough. Regulates and descends lung qi. Okay, now that does kind of fancy talk for just clear the lungs. you know, uh, Notes: lung one being a front mu point is a very important point used in diagnosis and treatment of lung disease. Pulmonary tuberculosis and bronchial asthma patients often have a sensitive reaction at this point due to it being the crossing point of the lung and the spleen meridians. This point can be used to strengthen the spleen, regulate the qi, and treat abdominal distension. Now, most people do have challenges with the spleen, especially if they have any type of digestive challenges. Spleen is more than likely in that mix.
Okay. And I want to say something else too. So for people who may not be, this is new to a lot of people. So let me correspond it. That is what you're seeing, these indicators. So if you have, let's say you do one of, a scan, whether from Dr. Gabe or myself, whether it's um, the the mobile scan, the hand cradle scan, the other scans that we have through Solex. One of the things that we're able to identify as well is that cough, asthma, wheezing. A lot of times that's communication in your throat chakra,
Mm, that's right.
right? So then you begin to understand, okay, I have this indicator in Chinese. Going back to our earlier conversation, is okay. How is this impacting me to where I understand it? Okay, if your throat chakra is blocked, that means you either not speaking up, not saying some things you probably need to say. There's a blockage in communication. So that means you probably need to ask yourself, what do you need to express? So it's a form of expression as well. And what do you count? Sometimes, as your grandma says, sometimes you gotta, cuss a motherfucker out, and I'm not saying cuss someone out, but be able to articulate what you need to say. One of the things that I struggle with, I will take the high road a lot of time because my goal is what's more important to me. But in that journey, sometimes you're meeting people, you're having interactions that you're just, well, I ain't gonna say nothing. I'm just focused on this. You begin to develop blockage, and so I just want people to be able to pay attention to that. So if you're experiencing, because sometimes, oh, it's allergies, it's this, it's this. Sometimes it's just a matter of expression and saying what you need to say to clear some of that energy as well. So I just wanted
That's
to
right.
add that in.
No, that's a strong point. And again, what you'll find with Chinese medicine or any type of natural modalities is that if it's real, if it rings true, once you cross reference it with one of the other modalities that rings true,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes quite clear. It's like, oh, okay. And you'll
Yeah,
find by
yeah.
doing that, you will also have a clearer understanding of what's going on and a clearer understanding of how to deal with it. You know?
Yeah, because I've had people ask, why do you do so many scans? Well, I say I cross reference, and even before we got the technology, right? Because this technology that myself and Dr. I mean, it's in the last 5 to 6 years, but prior to that, I was cross referencing TCM with iridology, right? So someone would come in, and the first thing I used to do for people was just an iridology assessment. Then if they wanted to pass that 12 weeks, I wrote out their plan. Then I would do a TCM 5 element. And so I would cross reference. And 9 times out of 10, it like you said, they were right hand in hand, neck and neck. So
That's right. That's right. Let's see here. So here's our next one. We're gonna go to stomach 36, right? So the Chinese name is Zhu San Li, right? It says leg 3 miles. Uh, how I was taught in school is called 3 leg yin. Okay. But why they say leg 3 miles is that this particular point is used by marathon runners. So this point actually increases your stamina. We talked about biohacking. If you are a long distance runner or you want to be a better long distance runner, by manipulating this particular point before you train or before you actually go for a run, you
mm-hmm.
will outperform your previous performance. Okay. The Chinese Olympic team has proven this time and time again by winning several gold medals in long distance events by utilizing this point with their athletes. That's something that you can look into on your own. So location is on the anterior aspect of the lower leg, 3 chun or 3 Chinese inches below stomach 35. Stomach 35 is like at the base of the knee. Okay, so 1 finger breadth from the anterior crest of the tibia. So again, on this, it's going to be a little difficult for me to explain that to you if you do not have the anatomy breakdown. The way that we find it, so most of these points, like we have the location listed, but we also have techniques for locating each one of these points.
So can I?
Go for it.
It's here, right? Let me see. Or is it inside or the outside?
So it's going to be on the outside of the shin.
Right here.
Uh huh. Yeah.
Right. So Audience, sorry about this, but this is a poster I haven't hung up in my office yet, but this explains this right here. Enlarge that again. There you go. What Dr. Gabe is talking about, right along this outside here.
Yep. So the point is, if I had to explain it, it's a little bit, maybe 6 inches below the knee, uh, to the right.
6 inches below the knee is going to be right here.
Yep, that's right. Yep. So if you rub on that area where the meat is,
Okay.
just outside of the shin, it should be nice and tender. Definitely want to massage that really good.
Okay.
It actually has a lot of benefits, digestive benefits for women. I mean, multiple uses for women. I think we're going to touch on that down in the indications. Let's go ahead.
And Dr. Gabe, can you touch on something?
Sure.
Like the first point and this point, which one is yin and which one is yang?
So whenever we look at these points, right? Let me go back. I'll go back one. Let's see. Oh, my bad.
It was the lung.
Oh, sorry.
That you're going ahead.
I'm not sure how to go back. There we go. All right. So whenever you're dealing with yin and yang in the points, how it runs is that you're going to have every yin is going to lead into a yang. Okay. So what you'll see is something called, and we're not dealing with this right now, so I don't want to get too off point, but hand tai yin. Okay. And the hand tai yin is how you differentiate the yin points from the yang points versus the yin versus the yang meridian. So each, just like you were breaking down in the 5 elements, there's always going to be a paired organ system. So lung is paired with large intestine, right? And
Okay.
how do we indicate yin from yang?
Audience that
Yin and yang is also known as zong and fu. Okay, so you got yin yang, you got zong and fu. So you got zong organs, fu organs, or yin organs, yang organs. And within those organs, so if we're dealing with the lung and large intestine, you're going to have one of the organs is going to be like a sac or going to be like hollow. And one of the organs is going to be full, like a piece of meat. Okay. So with the lung, we got basically meat. It does inflate, but it's meat. You know what I'm saying? And then you have your large intestine. So the one that's hollow is going to be your yin. The one that's solid is going to be your yang organ. But they work together in tandem energetically. And we can deal with that specifically. But yeah, that's how the best way to explain it is you can identify them from whether they're hollow or not.
Indeed. And for the audience, if this is something that you want to actually learn, then you would reach out to Dr. Gabe, Holistic University. That's where I received my training from. So it would definitely put you ahead of the game when you start talking, not to minimize other, wellness practitioners, whatever discipline that is. But this is what I feel separates me from just being a holistic nutritionist or a holistic, wellness coach, is understanding these different philosophies and how I can use them to help, clients, reach their ultimate goal is to live a balanced and optimum life. So definitely. And Dr. Gabe, he'll put his contact information as far as if you're looking to get some training in this. And if you're in the Atlanta area, you're wanting to actually get an assessment of where you are, reach out to Dr. Gabe. If you're actually in the DFW area, you can reach out to myself at Life Force Management USA. And so we'll have our contact information, and we can help anyone all over the country. We've got some very cool technology that allow us to help you wherever you are. So don't hesitate to reach out.
That's right. That's 100% correct. So here we have the classification of this point is called a He-See point of the stomach meridian. And, I would have to do like a whole class to explain these different categories of the points, so the
Mhm.
classification of the points. But for a short, simple explanation, it's equivalent to the C. Okay. That's why it says He-See. It's a
Mhm.
C point. So, like, for instance, when we talk about kidney one, which we're going to touch on in a minute, it's known as bubbling spring. So all of your points along the top of the fingertips and along the tips of the toes are known as springs. Okay.
Mhm.
And those springs, as they move further into the extremity, are then become creeks, streams, rivers, seas, and then it enters the ocean.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for all my uh I'm about to date myself. All my guys who watch the kung fu movies and Wu Tang and all that. Fist of the White Lotus. He
Mm,
breaks it down very very well. Gordon Liu is in there, and Lole is in there. And I mean, Lole, a lot of people don't understand is Lole was considered before Bruce Lee became Bruce Lee. Lole was the man in the 60s and 70s in
okay.
China. So all of the
Uh-huh.
Chinese movies that you see with the guy with the sage with the long blonde hair and he's got the iron shirt or whatever, that's Lole,
Uh,
right? I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. But yeah,
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 he's
but
a
Fist of the White Lotus, there's a scene to where um he hits Gordon Liu with different pressure points, right? And if he would have took the 99th step, he would have passed away, right? So, yeah, that's in my top 5 martial arts movie of all time.
that's
Is
some hot.
Fist of the original name was Fist of the White Lotus, but they named it something else of the White Lotus. It was on Amazon and Netflix for a while when they were just pushing all the older martial arts movies. But yeah,
No, that's an excellent point there, because in a lot of those movies they do touch on some of these sciences. Let's see here. So it's, as you can see there, then it says command point of the abdomen. So this is a master point for the abdomen area. So anything dealing with digestion or pain in the abdomen, this is a point that you would want to use for that. And you
okay.
can see it's also the point of the C, like we talked about in the classification, the He-See point.
Hmm.
Uh, okay, of water and grain. So when it says of water and grain, it's literally talking about grains like rice, quinoa, kamut.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so when you're dealing with the five elements, typically you see about 5 to 7 correspondences, but there's closer to about 100 correspondences for each five element, and it gets down into grain, fruit, day of the year, yeah, all
Oh yeah.
time of the day. Uh, like everything is broken down to the most tiniest essence that you could imagine. Indications. So, if you want to use this point, here are some of the reasons why you would want to: dealing with gastric pain, vomiting, uh, dysphagia, abdominal distension, bulborhynquias, or like what do they call it? Bubble guts, like rumbling of the bowel,
Yeah.
diarrhea,
Right.
indigestion, dysentery, constipation, abdominal pain, acute mastitis. So if we slide back up again, it says what? The command point of the abdomen, right? Emaciation due to general deficiency, passion, shortness of breath, poor appetite, lassitude,
What is
dizziness.
lassitude?
I really don't know, to be honest. I don't
Oh, I'm about
recall.
to
Let me
look.
say that. Yeah, look that up first. Dizziness, insomnia, cough and asthma, pain in the knee joint, apoplexia, hemiplegia, beriberi, edema, depressive psychosis, and madness. So this is also a psychological point. Okay.
Uh, lass- Lassitude is when someone has low energy, mental awareness. So
Okay. Excellent. Thank you for that. Functions tonifies the chi. So this is an increase your chi and blood. It harmonizes and strengthens the spleen and stomach. right? Strengthens the body and Wei Qi or protective Qi, raises Yang, calms the Shin or the spirit, activates the meridian, and stops pain. So this is a major homeostasis. You talking biohacking one for real. Okay. Note stomach 36 is known as one of the important points to tonify chi and blood and promote general wellness. Okay. Major point. He points are where the chi of the meridian collects and goes deep into the body. He points are uh, known to indicate treat rebellious chi and diarrhea. And rebellious chi, an example of that is like gas.
Okay. So let me ask you something, and I think this is something we talked about. I'm asking a question for the audience. How does I'm trying to ask this the best way. If we're all born a certain way, right? You know, our genetic profile, we have tendencies, right, based on our astrological chart or whatever. What if a person is injured, right? You know, so if you're an athlete and this person keeps tearing their ACL, you know, multiple times, like you got guys who tore the same ACL in college, in high school, now they're in the pros, and they, you know, had a 42-inch vertical, blah 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 blah, and then they end up weaseling, you know, fizzing out at 28, 29. That first time that they tore their ACL, right? It could be now from a biomechanics standpoint, it could be, you know, their hips were weak or their inner quad muscle was not as strong. So physically, you know, you go to physical therapy, you strengthen tendons, muscle to make the joints, you know, make that ACL, that ligament stronger. But if they were to come to you, right, at 18 and said, hey, got a scholarship to college, how would you approach something like that, you know, to help them say, hey,
They,
okay,
they've
this is
already
what your body has
they've
done.
already torn it.
Yeah,
Yeah, if they've torn the ACL at 18, first thing I'm gonna tell them, I'm gonna be totally honest and say you gotta have stop having sex.
let's
You
go.
got
Let's go.
you got to slow down. You can't keep wasting the semen uh, with what you're doing.
Right,
If you want to just have sex, a lot of sex, stop playing basketball. At least stop trying to play basketball at the level you're playing it.
right,
Just play pickup games so you're not flying through the air, and when you come down because you've ejaculated so much, your the nutrition that robs your bodies, especially your lower back, knees, and ankles of, you now are going to suffer the consequences of coming down on those knees that aren't as strong as you had perceived because of what you were able to do. But now, because you've weakened yourself internally, when you come down, you don't have the nutritional support and the necessary just support that you need to land properly. So that's why whether you're a boxer or you run track, your coach is always going to say, "Hey, no sex before the meet, no sex 6 months before this fight," right? Because they want you to have
right.
those
Yeah,
strong legs. Ejaculation weakens
yeah.
the legs, especially the knees, especially the ankles. I guarantee you, anybody you ask who has blown out that, and there's always going to be an exception. 99.999%
They get it in.
of those gentlemen, they are star players. Women are throwing it at them, and they're taking all that they can get. And in the process, they're damaging their body internally. And so that's not going to give them, it's not going to allow them, rather, to have the same amount of athletic ability and agility that they once had.
Now, now is that all right? That's a blanket statement, right? But different people have a different constitution that may be able to, you know, Magic Johnson, there, you know, he talks about Jordan. Like when they were on the Olympic team, Jordan would, you know, stay out all night, smoke cigars, go gambling, and next day give you 40, right?
Yeah.
And Magic said, he said, Jordan, I
Well,
can't do
remember
that.
this.
I got to get my rest.
Remember, as
But
a rookie,
Jordan was,
remember
huh?
as a rookie, he broke his ankle.
He broke his foot. Yes,
Yeah,
his second
but
year.
it was that ankle though. If you
Yeah,
remember, I
right,
lived in Chicago at that time, so it was like it was just common
right.
knowledge.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. He broke his foot. Yeah, and he told Tim Grover create
so,
exercises to help.
so again, it was coming down.
Hmm.
So again, these star players, regardless if you're Michael Jordan or if you buddy at the high school, it's the
Right.
same concept. And yeah, everybody has a different constitution, but at a certain point, it's going to eventually affect everyone.
Yeah, yeah. Because I've had a lot of knee and back pain. Hey,
It's,
look, hey.
look, eventually,
But
it is what it is.
But to your point, when I started doing some of, when I learned qigong, when I met you, and I started doing, semen retention, and even before I met you, I went through a point in my life about 20, 21 years ago that I was just abstinence for two different times. I practiced abstinence for about 9 months and 11 months, and not to get all personal, but I tried to refrain from releasing as much as I could without with a woman or whatever.
Yep,
But I could tell
the difference.
even the difference, right, in my energy, the clearness of my mind,
Mhm.
the control I had of my emotions. Now I was strong as hell on the court, and I was ready for the smoke. You know, what I'm saying like,
You get real.
and at that time, I'm not lifting weights like I lift now, so I'm 6'3", 180 pounds, soaking wet, and ready to tangle with anybody. But
Mhm.
the benefit, what I saw is clarity. And the best thing I could say is clarity. Now, I have studied, and I think you and I have had this conversation. If Even if you decide to say, hey, I want to find one special person, even making sure that person that you're circulating that energy with is of like mind and have the same, whether it's diet and spiritual constitution, all those things, because as a woman, she can recirculate that energy back to you if you are sharing and releasing yourself with her. So
Mhm.
there is another layer level to that if you are doing it.
There is.
So
Mhm.
yeah, you got the guys who stay married and
That too, that's a good point. But it does require, like you said, that like mind, and it
mhm,
requires
how she's feeding you.
it's true. But both of you should be, ideally taking part in various practices. So
Right.
it's love making at that point should be a conscious act. You know,
Yes.
with intent, and you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I'll promise the audiences we will have that we will do a show on that because I guys have laughed at me and I'm like, you're supposed to create an intent when you make love, right? You're actually supposed to use love making to create abundance and to, accomplish goals together.
That's right.
That's the highest level. And so people laugh at whether it's pimps or and I'm not here to get into no moral dogma conversation with anyone, but understanding the reason why you're doing something versus, and that's what separates us from the animal kingdom, is that we can actually have purpose and create. And so yeah, that's a great segue to another yeah, yeah, we definitely can get into that because
Oh yeah,
I think
no, that's a great point. That's
right,
information that I think men need, women
right,
need too, but men have to know this stuff to even be able to, you know,
right, right.
have that conversation.
And the reason why I say it because I hear you see it on guys, and you see a lot of the fitness enthusiasts. Hey man, semen retention, this and this, but you have to give them you have to do it in a very structured way. And if you don't, if you're not eating right, if you're still have other practices, right, if you're watching toxic information, so what that you don't ejaculate for 90 days? Soon as you go back, you still have the same practices and stuff that you had,
Yeah.
right? And even in our lecture that we did um, a few years ago, I think I talked about it. That every time you ejaculate, it's like losing a steak and 6 eggs or something like that. You lose
Oh,
like 0.008 of oxygen. This. So you lose things each time that you do it, and you don't replenish as frequent as you lose. And
You know,
so,
technically, um, in Chinese medicine, we look at that as
slow down.
ancestral chi or ancestral gene. So you never really can replace that.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
Mhm.
In my studies, that but you can replace the quality of your sperm like every 70 to
I mean,
77 days. You
yeah,
would have to.
you will reproduce sperm. So that I'm not really saying you're not going to reproduce sperm, but what I'm saying is the life force that you lost to get that back requires it's not a total loss. You do have to be engaged in some form of qigong, and there's certain herbs uh, that
OT.
can, yeah, tea being one, can bring back that ancestral gene.
Okay.
Uh, and there's just no way really around that. That's why it's also known, like, you know, so the proverbial fountain of youth is the penis. So it's not some spring hidden in the hills of Montana or, in Peru somewhere.
Right.
This is a metaphor. Uh, so the more you ejaculate, literally, the older you get, you lessen your youth. You,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? The aging process,
It speeds up.
it accelerates. So that's just, it is what it is.
And
So
it's in your skin and your glow. And so I get people that ask me, that's how I attract clients. It's like, man, I thought you were. I usually get somewhere between 12 and 18 years younger than what I am, right? And the first thing I tell them is, and I kind of beat around it. I'm like, yeah, man, I just take care. I talk about my diet and all that, but there were points in my life that I abstain, and I don't share that with a lot of people, but I'm sharing it that as you go through your own, whether it's your mental health, emotional health, and this is for men, right? Because we lose our energy through ejaculation. Women lose their energy through their monthly cycle, right?
that's, mhm.
So I
and
begin to
and
understand that.
they also lose it through I ain't gonna say ejaculation, but through orgasm. So it's like you started to say about the semen retention, and what I was going to add to it was like there's levels to everything, and there's definitely levels to semen retention. So like just getting your urethra strong enough to delay ejaculation is not what I'm talking about. That's what most of these guys are discussing today. Just delaying ejaculation. I wouldn't even call that semen retention.
Okay.
That's just my perspective. Semen retention in its true form requires that you develop certain skills uh, and certain mindsets. Like you have to literally be able to get to a point where you can see the flow, the pathway of the semen as you ejaculate it up the spinal column,
Mm-hmm.
over the crown of the head, down the front of the body, because that's the distillation. So this is what we talk about, like when we talk about the like the water cycle, right? So like it gets hot, the groundwater gets pulled up into the sky, creates clouds,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this is coming up, you're creating a cloud. Now you're raining it back down. You've condensed it. It's basically, what do they call it? What kind of water is that? Rainwater.
I know what you're
It's
saying.
distilled water, basically.
Uh-huh.
So this is the distillation process. The raining down. Now you're getting this pure droplets. Like if you were making hooch. I don't know if you ever seen hooch getting made, but as it's being
No, I've
refined,
tasted it before.
you
Yeah, that ain't for me.
get these
Yeah.
little drops coming out at the end. It's just
Right.
like you're making an essential oil. You're heating up the main ingredients. The steam is coming up, and then the finer essence gets dripped down into the receptacle. And that cauldron that we discussed earlier is the receptacle. So that finer essence of the semen is being collected into the cauldron. And now what has happened is that you haven't just retained your semen, but you've like recharged your battery in such a way that you're you had the orgasm. It was 10 times stronger than any orgasm you've ever had ejaculating, except you didn't ejaculate, so you didn't lose your erection and you did not lose any energy. Now you're ready to go again, like it's your second round, but you never lost your erection. So you're just like going into another gear.
Right.
You get what I'm
Right.
saying? And there's breathing involved in that. There's a whole
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
a
Hey,
process.
hey, you and I've had these conversations, and I think that we and just for the audience, for men out there who are needing help with that, and just if you're having an ED problem or a PE problem, we have Dr. Gabe and I have created a curriculum to help you. We will have it, go live. We have all the materials and stuff like that. It's a great program. It's all natural, but it'll help you after 100 days. You'll never have to worry about it again if you continue on with all the things that we teach you on that. But it's something that we're releasing here pretty soon, so stay tuned. But we will have some podcasts on that, and so you guys can get a deeper understanding on what we're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, let's do a couple of more, man, and we don't want to overwhelm the
Sure,
audience, and then
sure.
we'll get
Matter of
back
fact,
on this
let me
coming again tomorrow or the next day.
let me see if I'm gonna skip to kidney one. We can end with this one, and we'll come
Okay.
back and do another part and finish up. So kidney one, this is the point you had referenced earlier, right? Yang Chuan, okay, Yang Chuan or gushing spring. So remember we were talking about
Bubbling
these
spring.
bubbling spring. Okay, so the locations on the sole of the foot in the depression where the foot is the plantar flexion, approximately at the anterior third and the posterior two-thirds of the line from the web between the second and third toes to the back of the heel. I know that's a lot, guys. If you want to understand that, just grab a dictionary, read it again with a dictionary, and go through everything. And it's basically going to tell you that it's that point in the top middle of your foot, right? It's really a point. If you press it, it is tender. This is a major point in qigong and acupuncture, acupressure, reflexology. This
Tai
is also
Chi.
tai chi. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean most things. Um, this is where the root is initiated. Um, so this is also what we call the Jing Well point, um, meaning just the first point, right? So indications for this is loss of consciousness. So I'm going to start there. One of the first things I learned in acupuncture school was about this point, and Dr. Mark was explaining to the class that if someone was to die on you, like somebody just died,
Hmm.
you take this knuckle, okay, that middle knuckle, like you're going to noogie somebody,
Hmm.
press it up in that point with a good jolt, almost like a little punch. And you could or you may bring them back with this point. Okay. That's kind of a little side note. That's like what they call acupressure emergency medicine. Like there's a whole emergency side of this medicine. And this is one of those points. Also, headaches, pain in the neck, dizziness, uh, infantile convulsions, manic psychosis, nausea, vomiting, swelling of the pharynx, dryness of the tongue, dysuria, constipation, hot sensations in the soul. The function, it descends excess above, it resuscitates, clears heat, calms the shin, tonifies yin, clears empty heat. Now, some of this stuff sounds kind of foreign, but in traditional Chinese medicine, these are medical terms. So, you know, for instance, where it says calms the shin, that means calms the spirit. Okay. So, traditional Chinese medicine is not just a physical medicine, it's a spiritual medicine, it's
Hmm.
a mental medicine. So, it's a holistic medicine. It's not just dealing with one aspect. When you study traditional Chinese medicine, you do not specialize. So, we don't specialize in one thing. If a person has some type of let's say anything from cirrhosis of the liver uh, to neurotic behavior, so whether it's a mental issue, spiritual issue, I mean, even if they need to be cleansed of demons, acupuncture is equipped for that type of work. um,
Yeah, yeah.
you know
Um, Side note, even for people who are, my interior decorators and stuff like that that subscribe to feng shui, it's based in tradition, right? When you're doing your pakao or whatever, that, and you're understanding the direction, if you're northeast and where this should be in your home, and if your mirror should be facing inward or outwards based on the energy that you want coming in.
that's right.
It's based in. So again, what you're saying is this is all holistic, and we'll touch on that as well. I was going to ask you something about the foot, the kidney. Oh, and I think this is important, is why is the kidney so important when it comes to traditional Chinese medicine? And why do we, because I always tell my clients, I'm always going to address the kidney and the liver first. I
Mhm.
don't care what else is going on with you. I'm going to address that first. So maybe you can touch on that.
Well, I mean, there's so many reasons why, but I mean, the main reason is that the kidney is the battery, or they're the batteries of the body. So the battery don't work. The battery ain't
Exactly.
charged.
Exactly.
So the kidneys are vitally important. They handle so many different functions. Of course, they're filtering, all day long. They're regulating, your mineral contents, and so I mean, it has a lot of work to do. So you do want to be kind to the kidneys. Um, Again, we were talking about the knees earlier, right?
Hmm.
And too much sex. Well, kidney is another organ that is strained from too much sex. Now, again, you did speak on something that um, now, if you have a partner that is willing to learn some of this stuff with you, and you guys can work together, like you literally can have sex. If let's say if you didn't have to worry about paying bills, I mean, technically you could have as much as you like. You know what I mean? But it would be in such a way that you're not wasting any of your vital essences. Um, and I would also say that,
Exactly.
if you get to a certain level, of course, qigong, I'm always gonna uh, support that, but I'm also gonna throw in some of the tantra techniques as well. Are really good.
Yeah. Um, and just to, because people always ask, well, how much of this do you practice? And you know, things happen in life. Life happens. Sometimes we get off course, but the important thing is to build a foundation, because then you always have a starting point that you can go back to, or a
Mhm.
base. So when the pandemic hit, and the qigong that you taught me, 2016, 15, 16,
Mhm.
I would practice it here and there. But once the pandemic hit and I was at home, I literally did it at that point every day, 3 years straight, and I may have missed 3 to 4 days
Mhm.
doing out that three. Even with me working at night as a software release manager and working till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Whenever I got up, I would do it. Or if I missed a day, I would do it, or I would do it twice. And then I was doing, my binaural beats with my scan and all that, and I was doing my qigong as I was listening to my balancing tones.
Mhm.
So I can tell the audience that at that time, I manifested more in that 3 years from 2020 to 2023 to September of last year. I manifested more in my life from a financial standpoint than I ever had.
Mhm.
And so certain things happen, and not only to go into the personal, but things happen, whatever. And I could just tell by not doing it every day like I was, I can tell now what. But the thing about it is, anytime I get back to it, it instantly kind of just
Catapult.
it just man. But I build up so much, right, to where I
Mhm.
have that foundation.
Yep.
So whether you get with me or Dr. Gabe, and I only know the first level, if you can do it 30 days straight, it will change your life.
Yep.
100%, it would change your life. If you get into any of the simple breathing practices that we have, it will change. And just do something for 30 to 60 days straight, just to commit to that. And even if you can, okay, now I got to, like I said, life happens, kids, jobs, travel. You can only do it once a week. Even by building that foundation,
Mhm.
you'll always have that, and I don't know how many years you did it, but me just being able to do it 3 years consistently every day, even if I went out and hung out with friends and had something to drink that night, it may be 4 in the afternoon, but I did it.
You know,
And
the key to what you're saying is that I think people get caught up in like time crunch. So like, I don't know if I have time to do that today. Or we're talking 5, 10 minutes.
yeah, yeah, because even if I can't hold it for 9 breaths, I'll just do it for 4. If I
And,
know I'm
and,
pressed for
and
time,
all you need is
right?
three.
But I'm going through all the, earth
You
energy, heaven energy, and I'm
just hold it for three. Just do each one for three
yeah,
breaths. You,
yeah,
you're good to go. I mean, it doesn't take all day. I mean, there's studies that show if you take 10 deep breaths a day, it automatically like it changes everything. So if you're doing an
yeah.
actual practice, a breathing practice, I mean, whether you're doing it with us or you just
Even if
find
you do the,
something.
I think you've heard of this. I think you and I were talking about it, but um, before I started coming to you, I knew about the 4-7-8 method, right?
Mhm.
And it's breathe in 4 seconds, hold for 7 seconds, release for 8 seconds.
Mhm. And there's a bunch of those formulas, if you will.
Yeah, yeah. So even if you do the 4-7-8, until you can get with someone like myself or Dr. Gabe, it's just like it literally you're changing your physiology and your mental uh, capacity to accomplish things that you probably thought you would never accomplish.
Mhm.
Um, if I go back 2012, 2013, when we were in Minister Inky and we did the 40, he was supporting someone with diabetes, I believe, and we did the 45-day fruit fast with him or whatever.
Mhm.
Just doing that, and I think you and I were still eating quinoa and all that. I did it for 45 days, and literally after that 45 days, I think we started our staffing service for travel nurses and all that. Like it just triggered so much just
Activity.
awareness and just, hey, let's try this. Just and so I think it's important. And we took care of 3 today, but we're going to go through this whole 12 acupuncture. And I think the thing that I want the audience to understand is like you don't have to master any of these things. What we're doing is showing you how it works. And then if you decide that you want to take the next step for your own wellness, reach out. But this is just to inform you that just start.
Mhm. And let me
Just
just say
start, and
this.
we'll hold your hand.
Yeah, because
I think the thing that what separates, and I don't want to say separates because I don't want to never, poo-poo on no one else's and what their practice is. But I think the thing about it is with us, we literally will hold your hand throughout this process because it's a process. There's no, I would tell everyone, commit at least 90 days to see any results, whether you work with me or Dr. Gabe. Now, we can give you a bunch of information. We can do a ton of scans and stuff like that. But if you want to really scale, have a beginning point and scale your journey to where you eventually want to be, I think it's important that you commit 90 days and go from there. But outside of that, if it's not with us, if you trust someone else, at least you'll know what you're looking for. If you choose to go somewhere in your city or whatever, we're
Mhm.
giving you some of the tools to look out for and ask the questions that you may need to ask.
Thanks. Yeah, so the only thing I wanted to add was just a simple technique for these 3 points, right? Because we talked about how we can manipulate these points, but not too in depth, right? So I'm going to give you just a simple one. We're going to use the thumb. Thumb is great because the thumb allows you to apply more pressure than the other digits. So you can only press but so hard, and a lot of times we'll use these 2 points. We call it sword fingers when we put them together to do acupressure. But the thumb really
Hey, don't do that, bro. You know, a lot of men don't have their prostate exam. We're a little traumatized from that. Hey, men over 40, you might trigger.
look. All I would say is this, and don't judge me, but I'm not getting the exam done. I'm sorry.
Hey, yeah, yeah.
I'm I'm gonna skip that trauma. I got enough
You gonna
trauma
skip
in my
that
life.
trauma?
I got enough trauma dealing with, and that one
Exactly. All right.
I'm literally
All
gonna
right.
sit
So
that one out.
thumb.
So yeah, the thumb is a really good one to
Okay.
use. So remember we talked about long one first. So you can
Uh-huh.
press that thumb right into the point. And what you
Uh-huh.
want to do is just press for 10 and hold it for 10 seconds, release, and repeat that 2 more times. So we're going to do 3 holds for 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Release. You're going to hold it again for 10, and then we'll switch to the opposite side. You always want to do your acupressure bilateral. Each point is on either side of the body. So if it's on this side, after you work on this one, then come over here and work this one and hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Release, and then press it again for 10. And again, you're going to do 3 cycles of this, or 3 sets of 10, so to speak, right? Same thing for kidney 1 down in the bottom of the foot. Put that thumb right in that point at the bottom. Hold it for 10, release, hold it for 10, release, hold it for 10, release. Do both sides. And with these 3 points that we touched today, that will already give you a basic health protocol. So it's a
Awesome.
very simple
Real
protocol
quick.
for every day. Yeah.
So me, based on my training, I'm breathing through my nose, circling, and breathing out through my nose. So if someone wants to breathe through their nose and then out through their mouth, or what is the most optimum way when they're doing the breathing as
Either
their
one
whole?
of those, either one of those is fine.
Okay.
In and out through the nose, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Both of those are quite acceptable. And there's other things, like holding mudras while you're getting this work done keeps the energy in the body. However, again, that's kind of like advanced. So it's like certain stuff like that I wouldn't even bring up with the client typically unless they noticed. If they noticed me doing it and they asked about it, then I'll elucidate or elaborate. But otherwise, it's not really necessary for them to do that. But if you're getting acupuncture, you can hold this point right here in the center of the palm, and that will allow the energy as you get acupuncture work done to circulate continuously through the body. All right. And
Yeah.
there's other ways to hold it. You can hold it like this, hold this.
When I'm doing my affirmations,
Mhm.
I hold my hands like this,
Okay.
and I
Illuminati.
hold them at the center of my dantian. Come on now.
No,
Hey,
man, we did extent when I was in school, we did extensive studies on mudras. Like we had books on mudras. We had to we literally trained mudras, like the meditations, how to hold them, what they meant, how to draw different energy, etc., etc.
right,
And it's
right.
it's a very advanced science, and you can do so much with, like, you can just learn mudras and like heal yourself. Like you don't have to know where all of the points are. You don't have to know all
Yeah. And real quick, when you were talking about like how we hold this,
this.
if you in one of my it's in my top 10 movies of all time, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. There's a scene with Chow Yun Fat. Someone gets shot with a dart, and he does this manipulation, I think, in the back
Uh-huh.
because the person gets paralyzed from the from jade. They get paralyzed from the needles, and he does his manipulation,
Yeah.
and then they're back.
She hit him with the dim mop. So she
Yes,
hit him with a
yes,
few points, locked him up.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
He came with the dim shui. The dim shui is how you unlock
Right,
the dim mop.
right.
It's like reversing the dim mop. It's the
Yeah,
medicine. They,
yeah.
they call it yeah, dim shui. Dim shui.
That's right. Okay, good
Mhm.
deal, good deal, good deal.
But yeah, no, and this is the Phoenix Eye Fist. So, in martial arts, it's used to hit points like with pressure to cause
Hmm.
pain and damage. But in acupressure, it's used to hit the point and bring
Right.
relief.
But
You
that's
know,
in Southern style, right? In Northern style, we do a lot more of, you know,
it depends on the system.
right,
So Phoenix Eye is going to be in any system that uses like so. For instance, I'll give you an example. So my main system is Southern Praying Mantis. And yes, we
right.
use a lot of Phoenix eye fists. But the northern mantis, although you'll see them with this type of a technique,
Yeah,
they also use this as well. So
yeah,
they'll strike with the Phoenix eye fist. This type of a strike um, honestly requires a great deal of training. I don't know if you've ever tried to hit somebody with one finger. I wouldn't advise it.
nah, it's hard. So we
you
do
know,
the
doing things lightly is fine, but if you actually
right.
try to,
It's yeah, you'll break your
you're gonna break your finger.
yeah,
So it requires a lot of training, getting the joints together. A few years ago, and again we'll close out, but a few years ago, I had a conversation with one of my kung fu brothers, one of my teachers, and he was just talking about what it takes uh, to apply certain techniques, and it made me like reflect on my own kung fu, and I said, dang, I got all of these crazy Denmark techniques, but half of them or more, if I actually tried to apply them to somebody, I would break my wrist or my fingers or my hands because my
yes,
hands haven't been conditioned to that point. Like that's why, in those movies, one of the goals is to pierce stone. Because if you can pierce stone with your finger or two fingers, and you can break off a piece of that brick or that stone like that, you're not going to have a problem when you hit someone with that same finger. And
right.
to actually effectively hit an acupuncture point, you can't hit it with a fist. You have to hit it with a finger or a point. You require just a small surface area to be able to. Boop. It's like pressing a button on an elevator. It's
Got
like
you.
So imagine trying to imagine. All right, so imagine if the elevator buttons were like moving around while you tried to press it. That's the equivalent of trying to apply Demok in real time to another
Got
person because you're moving in space, they're moving in space, all 720 points are moving in space, and now you have to calculate which point you're going to hit at what time of the day, what season you're in. Like all of the stuff that you have to calculate during five element theory, all of that stuff has to be instantly calculated within your mind, trying to apply that. And then to have the wherewithal to line up your body with their body in the correct way to actually attack that point accurately. We're talking,
yeah, it's levels to it, man.
yeah,
And,
it's a
and
lot.
and we can end with this, and I think that's what we want to bring awareness. It's these sciences and these things that we're talking about. It is layers and layers and layers and layers, but just getting the basic information and maybe doing a deep dive on certain things can actually help you in just your own individual personal development and personal awareness. We want to get you healthy, but just being aware. I said this on a podcast or something. I honestly think that if, and I don't know how you feel about this, if I have a client that's been with me, my goal after 18 months, right, that they should know enough. I want to enhance, but I want to educate you. You should know enough to be able to write your own meal plan, be able to understand where you are, and you should only be able, need to touch base with me every 30 to 45 days. If you're not able to do that, then I've done you a disservice as a practitioner,
No, I
right?
agree. Mhm.
So my goal with the information that we're giving everyone is to empower you, right? Yes, we want to become our clients, and so that's all great and fun, but to empower you to where you can make educated decisions on the route in which you want to go. And even if you work with someone like myself or Dr. Gabe, you after, man, you feel like either, hey, I want to whether you start your own company or whether you just know enough to where now you can help your family, you're educated enough, help other extended family and say, hey, this is what you need to do. If it's something that becomes acute or chronic and you need someone like Dr. Gabe or myself, that's, we can have those conversations. But I think in hindsight, that's how I want to practice is, hey, let me educate you on this journey to empower you, and then we can go from there.
No, that's the key. Where I was taught, my teacher always said to give the clients uh, tools. Don't leave them to where they're just dependent upon you, because
Right.
otherwise, anytime they're feeling away, they're gonna call you and be like, "Hey, I'm
Yes.
feeling," which is cool. Like on one end, it's like, yeah, we need money, and that's great if the client wants to come all the time. That's great, but you know, like we all have lives, and we all, no one wants to be. I'll speak for myself. I don't want to be somebody's crutch. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Absolutely.
so the way I approach it and the way I approach clients is to always give them tangible tools that when they walk away, they will have enough information and knowledge that they'll have something that they can take home and apply. I'm going to give them homework.
Exactly.
Now, if they don't do it, if they don't practice it, that's on them. I don't have no ties to that. That's
Right.
we've already look. I,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give them my best. What they give
Exactly.
what they give to themselves is on them. I cannot dictate that. So yeah, that's where I come from with that.
Yeah. No. 100%. And I think that's what that's how you can kind of judge, right? Because if someone wants you to be their client from here, and that's different, like a chiropractor practice or different things that you go through, your dentist or whatever, that's different.
Mhm.
Periodic checkups. But I look at myself as the same way. At a certain point in time, man, once we correct what's going on with you now, then it's like just periodic checkups. Hey, let's just check in. And the great thing about some of the technology that we have, we can schedule out just like with the transdermal optical imaging mobile scan that we use. You
Yeah.
can schedule those out 12 months, right? So all you got to do is do your scan, check in with us. You got the formula. Let's just continue to execute. So
Yeah.
with that being, I don't have anything else. With that being said, Dr. Gabe, I don't know if you want to close out.
No, that was I think that was a lot of information that we plugged into a very short
Yeah,
period
yeah.
of time. And I'm glad you said what you said because I don't want to overwhelm because this type of stuff, although it's pretty simple in general, it can be confusing, and because we're dealing with Chinese language, it gets it seems a lot more complicated than it actually is. And then as the
Yeah.
more you start to look at these things as we go through these different points, you'll be like, oh, okay, I've seen that before. So this is also a he see point, and you'll
Hmm.
see how these different points, and then maybe later we'll do a whole thing where I show like I have these grids, these cheat sheets, if you will, that I created when I was in school that basically broke down, like we broke down acupuncture into one page. Like it's kind of hard to explain, but we
I
took,
got you. I
yeah,
got you.
yeah, we took it and we talk about a hack. Like me and my classmates and my teacher, we all kind of worked together and we just made this diagram that basically gave us like the I don't even think this exists anywhere else, to be honest. So I don't even know if I want to show it on here, to be honest.
Like acupuncture for dummies type of cheat sheet if someone's taking an
Yeah, man, but it's like you have to have a certain amount of understanding to even know what you're looking at. But
Yeah.
the way we set it up, if you master that page, you can go sit down for the NCCAOM acupuncture test and pass that thing. Like no issues. But that's we can discuss that another time.
All right. Well, with that being said, we'll end on that note. Thanks everyone for joining the Life Force Moving podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode. We have like 9 more pressure points to go through, so we'll look forward to giving you guys this information, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.